Hey legends, and welcome back to the Sim Racing channel where we're swallowing our pride. With the recent events hosted in rFactor 2, including F1 world champions such as Fernando Alonso and Jenson Button, you would think this simulator is on top of the world and might wonder why the title of this video would even consider using the word failing. Well, allow me to explain. If you followed this channel for any length of time, it likely wouldn't have taken you long to realize that rFactor 2 is my favorite all-time simulator. Consequently, this video feels very bittersweet to make. In fact, I've long wanted to make a very late review video talking about why I believe rFactor 2 is the best sim on the market. But as time has gone on, I've realized more and more that saying this would not only be disingenuous, but outright wrong. That aside, I want to preface this by saying that this isn't going to be a hate video. I have no ill will toward rFactor or Studio 397. My Steam playtime in rFactor 2 and the hundreds of dollars I've invested into it recounts the many years of immersive racing I've had in this wonderful game. That said, over the years I've played and invested heavily into this game, a few things have become clear about S397's approach to business strategy, which have codified in my mind why the simulator is largely being left alone by the racing public. Recently, S397 released the first of rFactor's licensed Ferrari content, which is a huge boon to the brand. This allowed me to start diversifying again and covering rFactor 2 versus focusing on more upcoming titles like Automobilista 2. One of the very first things I realized, going off metrics alone, is that not that many people really care. There appears to be a core nucleus of rFactor 2 fans, and beyond that, most everyone else either doesn't know or care about it. Given that the game came out in 2013, a full year before Assetto Corsa, the most popular PC racing simulator, one has to wonder why. Recent events have made that reason very clear to me. Shortly after the announcement of the Ferrari DLC, the 488 GTE car came out. Alone, not bundled with the GT3 car, but as an individual $8 Australian purchase. Us rFactor 2 fans have come to be used to content being trickled out like this over the last year. After all, not long before this car came out, the Berlin E-Prix track was released as a standalone purchase for $13 Australian, and not long prior to that, the New York E-Prix track also came out for $13 Australian. The other day, shortly after doing my 488 GTE feature video, I logged onto Steam to see an announcement that S397 collaborated with Radical to add their new SR3 XX into the game. Knowing that the Radical SR3 was among the earliest ISI content for the base game, I was excited that they decided to update and add to this very fun car. Yet, little did I expect upon clicking the update that it would take me back to the same Steam store page where I had spent so much of my time with rFactor 2 over the years. Yet another individual release charged at $8 Australian in the space of a few days. In the grand scheme of things, as I've worked hard throughout my life and built a few businesses, the cost in and of itself isn't the issue, but there comes a matter of precedent. Not only for the fans of the game who may be on tighter budgets, but also the precedence of how rFactor 2 is viewed as a whole. In this video, I'll aim to wear two hats. One, that of a person who is immensely fond of rFactor 2, and two, someone who has run businesses for most of their adult life. The trajectory that S397 are taking the simulator on is becoming very clear, and in my opinion, it's ultimately to the detriment of the brand. The recent events causing the lockdown of the entire Western world were a blessing in disguise for sim racing. They created a perfect opportunity to springboard our little niche and take it to stratospheric new heights. Just about all sim racing hardware is on back order right now, from entry-level wheels through to high-end direct drive gear and cockpits. People are clearly ready to start sim racing en masse. The events running on rFactor 2, bringing in Formula 1 champions, are strategic masterpieces. Most real drivers don't want to be racing on the official Codemasters game because of its basic arcade-like handling model. This is where rFactor 2 can step in to provide a platform to bridge the real racing with the virtual. While they don't have the same coverage and integration as iRacing, they've done about as well as they could in organizing these events and cobbling together a broadcast overlay system to provide a semi-professional presentation. Now here is where the business owner hat comes on. So they've hustled and set themselves up an opportunity to get eyes on the game connected to legendary names of the F1 world. However, the critical part actually comes in next. You have to make the game reasonably accessible to the viewer so that they also feel compelled to join their favorite F1 celebrities in racing. And here is how I believe S397 are failing to do that. Here we're looking at rFactor's Steam store page. The first barrier to its accessibility is that it's a PC-only release. For us thoroughbred sim fans, that's not necessarily a bad thing because it means they can focus on the dominant platform likely to bring the most realism. From a commercial perspective, however, it's discarding a vast majority of the market. We're going to be dealing in Australian dollars, just because that's where I am and how the Steam prices come up here. I'll convert our final tally to USD so that you guys can get a better picture of the landscape when we're done. The base game costs $46.95 Australian dollars. As most of us know, the vanilla content in RF2 isn't particularly awe-inspiring. Most classes only contain a single car, there are no laser scan tracks, and ultimately you can't really get any kind of a meaningful racing grid going with it, which is what people are likely going to want. So we delve into the DLC. Let's say we want the kind of endurance racing grid we can get with games such as Assetto Corsa, iRacing, or Race Room. We begin with the car packs. Here we have the GT3 pack, the GT3 Challengers pack, and the Endurance pack. These start us off with a decent number of GT3 cars, a couple of GTE cars, and one LMP3 and LMP2 car, respectively. Okay, off we go, right? Oh no, wait, remember, the stock track selection is somewhat limited and patchy in its quality. Okay, cool, let's look at some of the modern S397 laser scan tracks. Sebring, Nürburgring, Le Mans, and Circuit d'Azur, aka Monaco. So these are some of the industry-leading laser scan tracks. We've now got 4 of them, and when mixed with the vanilla content, we get a reasonable playlist. Oh wait, I just realized there's actually more GT cars in here. Let's dig around. There's the Ferrari 488 GTE, so of course we need that. There's the 2 strong pack with the Aston Vantage GTE and McLaren Senna GTR, well, of course we need that too. Oh, and then there's the BMW M2 CS Racing, and of course we need that. Why wouldn't we want a little low-powered fun to learn tracks with, right? Okay, so including all of that, we've made about 11 individual purchases to get here, including the base game. But we're finally there. Come to think, how much is this going to cost us? Oh, okay. Only 220 Australian dollars? At today's exchange rate, that's around 150 USD. Mind you, that's not all of the aftermarket content for the game. Not even close. If we tally it all up, to the best of my ability, since there's so much overlapping content between packs and individual cars, my best estimate is that you're looking at 400 Australian dollars, or currently 270 United States dollars to get everything in rFactor 2 at the present day. Compare that to the 58 Australian dollars it costs to get the Assetto Corsa Ultimate Edition, offering everything officially licensed for the game since 2014 in a single purchase. Are we starting to see the barrier to commercial accessibility here? Currently, Assetto Corsa has an all-time concurrent peak player count of 8,365. Meanwhile, rFactor 2's is at 1,624. That's over 5 times less players, and that's solely on the PC platform. AC also exists on both dominant consoles, where these numbers are likely to be substantially higher. Let's present a scenario. One of the viewers of these esports events becomes aware of rFactor 2 and thinks to themselves, okay, I'm ready to delve into this. Assuming they've navigated the gauntlet of getting themselves the correct racing wheel setup, they're now ready to buy into the game. They may opt to ask a more seasoned sim racer how they should go about doing so, because rFactor 2 seems to have a lot of options going on, and they don't really know what they're getting into. I get this question all the time. What do I buy? Well, how do you tell this person that they have to spend 200 Australian dollars to get a reasonably complete grid of GT cars on well-rendered tracks, when they can instead buy all of Assetto Corsa for $58 or all of ACC for $79? Who in their right mind would buy into this on a promise? This has been my personal barrier to getting friends and colleagues into the game. They're simply too overwhelmed by it all. So then we have to break it down to, well, what's your favorite GT3? Maybe just buy the McLaren 720S and the Nürburgring. Give it a run and see how you go. You're basically trying to sell them a game, a car and a track at a time. It's just bad business practice. Now, this is just the sales model at play. We haven't even gotten into the game itself as far as barriers to accessibility go. From the menu that would have been out of place in a late 90s spreadsheet simulator, to the lack of any kind of single-player campaign, to the bizarre AI, through to the races randomly being full-course yellowed with safety cars that won't screw off after multiple laps, through to the non-existent multiplayer lobbies peppered with an assortment of all kinds of bugs you could possibly imagine. These are all long-standing issues with the game, as of years. As a result, the relationship the developers have with their community is tenuous to say the least. I've tried to get friends into RF2 countless times only to hear, "Wait, how many packs did you want me to buy for this?" Or, "Man, it took us about 2 hours to get past the UI and the bugs to actually run a multiplayer lobby." Most of them just retire back to ACC or AMS2, the latter being far more accessible than RF2 even in its pre-release state. So, ultimately this is what I mean when I say that rFactor 2 is failing. The developers are clearly hanging onto that core nucleus of dedicated fans and wringing them dry, rather than making their product more accessible and bringing in waves of new players. While that's certainly one business model, in my professional opinion it's short-sighted and will ultimately lead to the title never living up to its full potential. That's basically what this comes down to. So many of us core rFactor fans desperately want to see it succeed, but we're continually thrown curveballs. This is not to say the community hasn't been given anything. 397 have done some great work modernizing some of the old tracks like Silverstone and Zandvoort, and they've even brought in slews of new cars like the Tatus and McLaren open wheelers. It's not all bad, but it still doesn't circumvent that barrier to entry for the average player. Until rFactor 2 begins to make sense as a product, I'm afraid it's likely just going to meander in the background, trickling out updates at a snail's pace while the larger, more accessible titles continue to take the limelight. If you guys enjoyed this little dissertation, be sure to hit the sub and join us for future sim racing news and reviews. I'm sure you have your own opinions on this situation, so be sure to leave those down below. Until next time, we'll see you guys later.